Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Leonard. I'm chairman of the Milton Board of Appeals. This is the April 21st, 2022 hearing of the Milton Board of Appeals. It's a hearing relating to the decisional meeting and preparation of a decision on the residences at East Milton. I believe this is our third meeting on this matter. Present with me is Jeffrey Mullen, board member, and board member Nick Gray, and the secretary of the board, Crystal Ridge, is here. Also, Judy Barrett is here, our consultant. Judy, welcome back to the Board of Appeals. So we hope you're doing better.
Thank you.
And oh, there you are. Okay, you look pretty good. You look a little sleepy, but what are you going to do? Thank you for joining us and participating tonight. And we have Tim Zawinski, the Milton Town Planner, present. So with all of the officials to do, Jeff, you did prepare for the board with our thanks, a revision of the decision that had been circulated. I think this is the third revision. And last time we went through this relatively quickly, emphasizing the new matters that were put into the decision and that needed to discuss. Did you want to pick up the ball and run through it as we did in the last meeting? I thought that was pretty effective.
Okay.
You tell me, how do you want to proceed here?
No, whatever.
Coherent.
I'm sorry?
Why don't we decide on what to, how to proceed in a coherent manner so that we're not repeating a lot of the things we discussed in the past. I think we've fairly narrowed the issues to 2 or 3 issues here that we should be directly dealing with.
Yeah. So I've given the board a version that shows the changes from what it's seen before. They're really focused in most of them, I would say, are in the nature of corrections to typographical errors or just misstatements. I mean, obviously, to the extent that members have comments, comments on what those are, I'm happy to go through them. I don't know that you've had time to read what I've given you, but I on page 2, for example, I corrected a few typographical errors and revised some punctuation, and that continues really through several pages. There's no substantive changes really at all. The first substantive change, I think, is on page 11. We had a statement in here that stated that the applicant had the opportunity to review the following conditions in the board's action on the requested waivers from local rules and has no objection. I don't think that's technically true, so I just took that out.
Okay.
It's not really want to speak. The decision speaks for itself. I don't want to put words in the applicant's mouth, so I took that out.
I don't disagree with that. Nick, do you agree with going out?
No, I agree. Take it out.
I think that's just a holdover from the previous decisions where we were going through the conditions. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
While the hearing was still open.
And then on page 13, paragraph 8.
Can I stop you 1 second? On page 11, going to your paragraph 52, right down in the middle where it's talking about architect Cliff Palmer.
Yeah.
He's of Davis Square Architects, not.
Oh, yeah. Not Doris.
You sure?
Yeah.
Yes.
Davis, not Doris.
Let's check that.
I think it's Cambridge. I don't remember David. Somerville, Cambridge, I don't know.
I think
Somerville.
Somerville.
I'm sorry, it's on the red line, so, Cambridge.
I think it's technically in both cities, I think.
Is it? All right, then I'm completely insane.
The paragraph A4. So
Okay, yeah,
it's on page 13.
that's it. Okay,
I
good.
I think there was some confusion in the application actually on how the parking was broken down. And I think part of that had to do with, there was one particular document that I think double counted a few spaces. So went through this today with the director of planning. I think this is accurate, but I want the board to look at it and confirm that it is. And the reason why this is important is the board and me have expressed concern about the availability of guest parking, which is a particular issue here because those are the spaces that are really going to compete with the on-street spaces during the day, and I know we talked about that in the Saturday meeting. So I think this is accurate. I had thought that there were 8 spaces reserved for guest parking, but I don't think that's true. I think it could be 8 spaces to the extent that some of those spaces that are otherwise occupied could be available. I don't know. But I think it's 5, at least based on this count. Now, the communication we got from the applicant didn't indicate that there were any guest spaces, but I don't think that's true either. I mean, I'll be contradicted by somebody, but I think this is accurate. So it's 104 total spaces in the garage and the surface lot, of which 92 will be reserved for the residents. 2 are for loading between 8A and 8P. And then at other times will be guest parking, which is terrific. 2 spaces are for move-ins, 3 spaces are accessible spaces, and 5 are reserved for guest parking.
When you say accessible, do you mean handicapped accessible?
Yes, I think that's the way that you to write it though, John.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not.
I don't know. I know that the building needs to be accessible. As under the ADA. I don't know enough about parking compliance to know that, but we were told that 3 of the spaces would be accessible by the applicant in that communication. So part of this isn't just repeating what the applicant has given us, but part of it is clarifying how it's broken down because it becomes important later in the decision.
Okay, I'm on board.
Tim?
Yeah, that Jeff, that all jives with what I've seen and what we discussed. I think the one kind of additional wrinkle is those 3 accessible spaces there are 3 in the surface lot, and then there are 2 in the garage.
I see.
And I think the way that the application contemplated it, I think, was the 2 garage spaces would be for residents.
Yeah.
And then the 3 accessible spaces are out in the surface lot, kind of mixed in with the guest parking.
Maybe I should say in a parenthetical, in addition to 2 accessible spaces reserved for residents, because those are in the 92.
Yeah, I think it would clarify, because that was that was going to be my question. Are those 3 accessible part of the 92? Or are they part of the 5? Or are they in addition? In which case they're not classified as guest or resident.
Tim, what do you think?
I think so. Again, the way that the application kind of is written is it actually says 8 guest spaces, and then inclusive in that is those 3. So to Nick's question, those are the surface lot is where the guest parking is. The 3 are kind of part of that.
I see.
It's a little bit of a.
What if it's 92 spaces of which reserved for residents, of which 2 are accessible, and then 8 spaces reserved for guests, of which 3 are accessible? Is that capturing it?
8 spaces reserved for guests, 3 are accessible.
Of which 3 are accessible.
Yeah.
I think that gets after the way it's written in the application. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'll read it back to everybody's. We don't have that much, so we might as well, this is important. Okay, so it would be, parking has been proposed at the project as follows: 104 total spaces in a garage and surface lot, of which 92 spaces are reserved for residents of the project, of which 2 are accessible. 2 spaces are for loading between the hours of 8 to 8. And at other times, guest parking in a parenthetical. 2 spaces are for move-ins, and 8 spaces are reserved for guest parking, 3 of which are accessible.
I think that works.
Okay,
I like it.
okay. Judy?
Jeff, before we get off this, the 2 move-in spaces
Yeah,
are discrete spaces. But from a practical standpoint, there's going to be a lot of move-in at the start and probably consistent, move-in activity at some level. But there's going to be a lot of time when there's not move-in happening. And I mean, do we want to talk about those being guest spaces when they're not, actively being managed as move-in? Because I mean, my understanding of how the parking lot is supposed to operate, I mean, there's going to have to be some level of management of those as move-in spaces in terms of directing traffic or putting cones out or whatever. So, I mean, do we want to kind of fold those in as additional guest parking when it's otherwise not being used as move-in spaces, or are those like specifically marked as permanent move-in space? I confess I don't remember how that worked.
what you could do is, one of the things I think maybe the applicant doesn't agree with this, but I think the board is trying not to micromanage the applicant here. What you could do is say the applicant is encouraged to manage the move-in spaces as efficiently as possible, recognizing that guest parking is at a premium or something like that. You could do something like that without mandating it,
Mhm.
I mean, those move-in spaces are going to be important too, right? Given the crowd and congestion. So I think this could get really tricky for for the property managers.
And those move-in, it says loading in the original, I mean, in their draft decision. When I first read that, I took that to be inclusive of move-in, but perhaps also inclusive of deliveries.
Yeah, I think loading is delivery.
Okay, maybe okay.
You want to say that?
No, I'm just, let me go back and read it again. Are the move-in spaces that you're referring to the ones that are written in the decision currently as loading?
No.
Or am I- Okay, wait, I'm missing it.
This is part of that breakdown that came from the applicant too, recently.
92 residents, 2 spaces for loading, 2 spaces. Oh, there's the move-in. It was broken up between the lines.
So a lot of the wording of these conditions came from Peter Freeman's draft,
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to be
Yeah.
clear. I
Yeah.
mean, not blaming him, I'm just saying that
No.
if there's a discrepancy here, I'm not sure how to explain it, because I tried not to tamper with those details.
sure.
I think we have it. I think the question is whether or not you want to lean in on the move-in. We could say the applicant is encouraged to maximize the use of the move-in spaces or something. Tim?
Yeah, I mean, the exact language, obviously, I guess you have to balance it, but I just, the point was, if we feel that guest parking is going to be at a premium and we want to take full advantage, you'll want to just acknowledge that the applicant should be taking full advantage.
Yeah.
Right.
John?
I agree with this. I agree. It's, But I think the move-in spaces are going to be reserved in advance. I would assume people aren't going to pull up in a truck and start moving in without permission of the operator, the Corcoran company.
One would hope.
Well, I guess one would hope, and I agree with Jim that it certainly at the beginning of the project you're going to need more than 2 move-in spaces because there's going to be chaos.
Okay. I think we're, I say, the applicant is encouraged to maximize the efficiencies of the spaces reserved for move-ins, recognizing that guest parking at the site is scarce.
That's fine.
Gives them some flexibility and leans in on the policy that the board is trying to express, which I think goes to the principal local concern here.
That's fine with me.
Hey, Judy, the words personally identifying information was capitalized, but I didn't see that definition anywhere, so I just uncapitalized it. I've had an experience where, you know, what's personally identifying to one entity might not be personally identifying to another. This this is in page 16. As used, it seems to me to be personally identifying information as determined by the subsidizing agency, but I don't know that.
I'm sorry, which condition are you looking at, Jeff?
B4,
B4, did you say?
B, yeah, B.
Okay,
It's on page 15, Judy.
okay.
Is it defined in a statute somewhere?
It probably is. It's not in the regs, though. It's probably not in 40B. I mean, I'm sure it's used somewhere. Maybe the regulatory agreement or something.
Okay,
I'm just pointing out that's one of those terms.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know that it is defined per se, but I think it's up to the subsidizing agency. I mean, clearly what they're not going to do is disclose the incomes of the tenants.
Yeah. I mean, you know, this is a big deal. I know privacy is a huge issue. So I'll just leave it. I'm trying to lean in on not whatever. Okay. I just wanted to point that out because I know you've got a lot more experience than any of us with this. Let's see. Okay. In paragraph 21, I added words, in no event shall the town be responsible for providing trash and recycling services at the site or for the project. Spelled it wrong. Project. That's not new language. That came from the end of the document that was just kind of hanging out there. I tried to move all the trash language to the same place. So that's what that change is. Okay.
yep,
Fine.
The only thing to be careful about is that some of those conditions at the end are about the ongoing operation of the project.
Yeah.
Whereas many of these in the sections B, C, D, and I think E are about things that the applicant must do to be able to move forward
Right.
during construction.
I
So we
think
just want to make sure those are separate.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. The reason why I think it makes sense here is this is where the trash and recycling management plan has to come in.
Mhm.
So it's telling the applicant, you know, don't give us a plan that requires the town to take care of the recycling, you know?
Got it. Understood.
The E11, there's a typo, I think. E11. No, okay, fix that. Oh, cease. Okay. Let's see. Okay, page 27. So the applicant had committed to a car sharing space. Might put that in the nice to have category. I think that could get a lot of use in a building like this. And if the board's pleasure is to have that happen, you're gonna give up one of your other spaces. So the trade-off is one less guest space, for example, for the car sharing. I'd be interested in the town planner's view of that and whether or not car sharing is otherwise available in East Milton.
I'm not aware of any car sharing spaces. I don't want to commit 100% to say that they're not out there. I just don't, I can't think of one off the top of my head. I think one of the things that I think we need to keep in mind, and I can do a little bit of research on this, is in terms of the location of these. I think, you know, some of these vendors, I think they really prefer those to be kind of out in the open. I know I've been on projects where there's been a proposal to put one kind of inside a garage. You know, sometimes you see them, sometimes, you know, I think there's a hesitancy on the part of the vendors to kind of put them, you know, where people have to go in and out of, you know, ostensibly private space to get to them. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's just one thing that I think has tripped up some of these plans in the past is, you know, not being able to locate them in the kind of optimal place.
You want to do something like, instead of making it mandatory, permit the applicant to convert one of the guest spaces to a car sharing space?
Yeah, I think that would probably just leave the option open, but not, you know, make it a requirement that you have to, you know, eventually not comply with if you can't make it work out.
What's the board's pleasure on that?
I agree with Tim.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable, to make it nice to have, but not a requirement.
Yeah. I do think it's a good idea, but just don't have a whole lot of parking. Okay. Then you've got the issue of whether or not the board is going to limit the use of a space, one space per unit. I know the applicant doesn't like that. I suggesting in here that, consistent with what we've seen, that the studios and ones get one unit, one parking space. The twos and threes could get two if they're available, as a bit of a compromise. With
I
the
like,
idea,
I like your language, to be frank about it. I think it gives more flexibility.
okay. Nick?
I'm just giving it one more look. But I'm all in favor of flexibility as a principle. So the applicant would rather not have this particular restriction?
What happened is, you've got a 1-to-1 ratio, right? You had 92 resident spaces, 92 units. Some of the people, we're trying to encourage people to opt out of the parking. We had suggested that if you opt out, that space becomes a guest space. The applicant said, that's not good. I want to have, some of my twos and threes might want 2 spaces. Should provide that option. And then if they decline that, that space becomes a guest space. So the bigger units have an option to get 2, provided that they're available.
Yeah. I think it's fine.
But every resident gets the use of at least 1 space.
Right.
The opportunity for you to have one space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I would.
Yeah, so nobody gets shut out. So that you can't offer 2s and 3s too, in lieu of having somebody have the opportunity for 1. It's only when they start opting out.
All
I'm
right,
on
but if-
board. I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, what if somebody moves in, needs a space, and there isn't one available because all the two, then what, do we tell them they have to get rid of their car, or are we just gonna leave it up to them? It's possible to happen.
Yeah, but isn't that a management decision? We're not managing the
Yeah,
project.
no, I understand that, I know.
Presumably they'd put them on a waiting list or something.
I'm just thinking about what's, where that spare car is gonna end up.
I think what the applicant will tell you is that, when sort of the discussion about, renting out a unit is taking place, the management will sort of be upfront about like,
Oh, yeah, I get it.
there's no opportunity for an extra space,
Yeah.
do with that what you will. I mean, that's kind of their whole argument about marketing sort of specifically to people that, have limited, access to vehicles. But I mean, Nick, at the end of the day, if someone really wants to have two cars, they'll have to fight it out, on the street where we don't have overnight parking and, hopefully we get out there and do some strict enforcement.
Yep, understood.
What we could do, if you'd like, is F5 could say all initial residents shall be offered, and then all later residents shall be offered, subject to availability.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't object to that. I think that makes sense.
Judy, you're making a funny face.
I'm just wondering, do we need to go that far?
No, but it isn't right. I would like not to go that far, but if you're going to mandate that everybody be offered a space, there might not be spaces to offer, is the point.
But isn't that a management problem?
Yeah, it is, but to be technically, you'd be out of compliance with the permit by not offering it. This gives them, this is, look, it's just plain as day. I can't offer them if I don't have them. It's really only with respect to the initial regime. There will be a time when somebody's going to rent a space there that there's not a space for them,
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, and then we work that concept into F6, where the 2s and 3s get the opportunity to, it should say F5, get the opportunity.
Yeah, your cross-reference needs to be F5, that's right.
It should be F5, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And then they got the MBTA program. Now, the applicant had objected to the MBTA program, the idea that it would be difficult to enforce. So my revised language would require that the applicant, that the people using the T pass document it to the reasonable satisfaction of the applicant, or they lose it.
Okay.
I don't think I wrote it correctly. I think it should read, if they fail to document to the applicant's reasonable satisfaction that he or she has used the monthly pass at least 10 times per month, not less than.
Right, right.
It was a negative thing.
It's all right. It happens.
Yeah, no. What does the town planner think?
Sorry, I lost my unmute button for a minute. The only thing, I mean, I kind of just wonder what reasonable means. I know reasonable is a great kind of fallback in these cases, but I just.
Well, it means that they can't, what it really means is that they can't be unreasonable. And reasonable is in the eye of the beholder here. And I think we have to have confidence in your developer building such a significant building that they're going to be reasonable. I think that's what we're saying here. I don't know, but.
No, I mean, that makes sense to me. And I mean, this condition, if everyone takes it seriously and kind of promotes it, I mean, it works out for everybody in terms of, giving them the flexibility to have spaces. Because I mean, I think, to the previous discussion we had, they want to be able to have spaces available if people want to have them kind of later on after the initial lease up. And so, having the tools to sort of get people out of those spaces and free those up, I think is going to be good. So I do think they have an incentive to be, reasonable, whatever that looks like. So I think that's probably fine.
What counts as a use for this purpose, Jeffrey? Is it one day commute in and out is one use, or is that two uses?
I just think you have to use it
Okay.
once. You just got to use it.
Okay.
What about the cost, Jeffrey? I'm not sure I understand this fully, but who pays for the this pass?
Yeah, the developer.
Okay, so what do you know what that is on a monthly basis? So we can
$90. Judy knows.
I sure do, because I provide public transportation subsidy for employees who use it.
how nice.
I just think it's important.
Do you know of any 40B projects that have this type of provision, Judy? And is it does it work? Is it efficient? Is it
I don't know of any, but any projects that have done that. I think it's pretty creative, though.
it is?
I mean, often in places like, right next to it, right near a T station, this isn't even a discussion point. It's when you've got a location like this where you don't have optimum T service, but you've got a site that's constrained.
That's right. You don't, when you're on top of Park Street Station, you don't need to incent people to jump into the red
That's
lines.
right. They're going to do it.
Although if you're on top of Park Street Station, you live at Boston Common, that's probably not a good
Yes,
idea.
I was
So
wondering about that, but I was
pick another
expanding it.
station,
Yeah,
downtown crossing.
there you go. South Station, soon enough.
Soon enough, exactly. Is that where you're going, Nick?
I bike, I don't take the T.
I mean, I do think it, this is not cheap. I mean, this is not nothing, John, to your point.
Yeah, it's not inexpensive, but I have a recollection, Jeffrey, and I may be foggy on it, but I thought that at some point in general discussions about accessibility to public transportation and all of that, I thought Jen Corcoran indicated a willingness to explore this type of program, this type of opportunity. Let's put it like that.
So I
So
thought
I'm not sure that the developer's going to think this is anathema or mean-spirited or anything else. I think
the applicant expressed concern about enforcing it. So we're trying to shift the availability of the pass to the person using the pass. If they want to keep the pass, they got to prove they use it. And they'll figure out the way to do that. So I think that's fair. I think during the hearing, we had suggested something like this or exactly this. The applicant, I don't think agreed to it. The applicant proposed like a 1 year.
1 month or something.
1 month,
yeah.
I think. Yeah, I think it was 1 month.
I don't think that's it's going to really work. That will really work here. You really need this to be kind of a feature of the attempt to drive down automobile traffic and parking and all of the things that we've heard a fair bit of. I mean, the vast majority of concerns. So.
yeah, I'm on board. I think it's creative and it's something that I think the board wants as part of the decision. And If the applicant wants to challenge it, let it do so. I don't think they will. I think they'll go along with this and see how it works.
I agree.
And if there's some difficulty with how it's working, Jeffrey, does anything preclude the developer from coming back to the board and?
That's exactly what I was gonna say, John. They can come back for a modification of the permit.
You teach me well. I'm learning.
No,
It's
I
taking a
don't
long
teach you
time.
anything. Oh my gosh, I don't teach you anything. I
think-
learn from you.
I think that's the way it should be. If there's an issue, they can come back to the developer, and the developer comes back to us, and we can deal with the issue. But we should be on the right side of this issue and not the wrong side, particularly with the parking issues that we're facing.
And particularly with the 1-to-1 ratio of spaces to units,
Yep.
which is pushing the envelope. So I think this is a great, as you guys have mentioned, a creative solution, and I think it's I like it the way it is.
Do
I'm
we,
on board.
do we need to define use to one way? The use is when you tap in, you know?
That's what I was thinking.
They do call it an unlinked trip. That's kind of the, I could say, enter the system. Or just one way.
So you tap in, I don't know, I don't recall if one gets a record of your taps.
Oh, the T knows.
Oh, well, I'm sure the T knows, but
Or in deep trouble.
Can someone get an accounting of their use from the T? I don't know.
I don't know that either.
I mean, don't we have to really leave this up to the good faith of the?
Yeah,
I think you do.
Okay.
yes,
that's fine. I
we're not
don't,
going to state.
Okay, the next issue is on page 29. The minimum height.
oh, yeah. Let's just make it 12 feet and call it a day.
I think that's too high.
No, I know.
Well, I thought you did a survey, Jeffrey.
I can't say that that's 100% accurate. I mean, I'm just, looking at big trucks.
Well, I was gonna run out there with a tape measure today, but I didn't have it on me. Hold still.
I'm sure your neighbor had a few deliveries today across the street.
Yes, indeed. There were quite a few. All right. So let's back up. Does anybody recall the source of 8 feet 9 inches? Was that from the original?
No, that's from me.
That's
That's
from you.
from me. I identified it as a UPS height. But I don't know that. I don't know that that's the right height is all I'm saying, It's kind of like, but I think we know what we're talking about. We're talking about that big brown truck or that big van that Amazon uses, the one that's going to frequent this kind of development.
Yeah.
No, it's not a small U-Haul necessarily, and it's not an 18-wheeler or a heavy dump truck, right? But we've got to have some assurance that those kinds of trucks can get in there. I'd love to define it a different way. I just don't know enough about the trucking industry.
Well, the other issue, Jeffrey, is that just because say the current truck is 8 feet 9 inches, that doesn't mean the truck at 5 or 10 years from now isn't going to be taller. I mean, the thing is we're building. Well, I guess what would I say is this, that the issue of the purpose of having this access is to get the delivery trucks off the street. Obviously, once this building is built with whatever height we put in here, it's not changing very easily, if at all.
Yeah, that's true of the whole industry, though, right? You've got all these garages.
That's right. So my point is, we're kind of locked into whatever we put in here, and to that extent, should we err on the side of making it flexible enough for the future, or not bother?
Well, we could drop the minimum. We could just say, accommodate the tallest vehicles provided by Amazon, UPS, and other common delivery vendors, period.
So the internet suggests
Yeah. that's where
that
I
a
was going
standard
too.
Amazon delivery van is 96.3 inches tall. The high roof vans are 107.3 inches tall.
That's almost 10 feet.
Yes, it is.
Um,
So the van, the
I'm
standard
still-
van is 8 feet and a couple of inches, and the higher one is more.
We could also say determined by the applicant in cooperation with the building inspector.
So the taller, the high roof vans at 107.3 inches is 8.94 feet.
Yeah. And convert that to inches. Is that 9 inches? I think that may be where I got that number, Judy.
Yeah,
The one-
107.3 inches is 8.94 feet.
Yeah, I know, but how many feet, how many inches is 0.9 feet?
0.9 feet,
8 something, right?
12 times 0.9.
It's like 7 something or 8 something.
That's right. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we could just have it in inches. I don't know. I know this was an issue at the hearing, the big issue to get into that courtyard. There was a
Yeah.
lot of confusion about it.
I mean, Nick does raise an interesting point. You know, what happens if that maximum height changes? And we've now set a specific standard here.
Well, yeah, but the building's not gonna change, Jude.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying that the outcome you seek to achieve may be impossible in the future.
Right.
So you want to say as determined by the applicant in cooperation with the building inspector? You're gonna issue the building permit.
Maybe it's better to say that, Jeff.
I think it is rather than a specific height.
Yeah. We're all
Okay.
kind of trying to figure this out here, and none of us drives one of these trucks. And I certainly don't want to.
No, but I do note that, I mean, at least based off of recollection, right? I mean, the old delivery vans were sort of Ford Econolines. They're much taller now than they used to be.
They are. That's right. They are.
So, I don't know. I think that's, we've written a description of what not less than the height to accommodate the tallest vehicle provided by Amazon and UPS. I don't know that we need to define it any more than that, other than saying maybe to be determined with the building inspector.
Okay,
I agree.
It's an important point. That's the only issue. And but I also don't want to go too low, you know? Because we all know what they're going to do if they can't squeeze in. They're going to have no choice but to,
Right.
you know, double park they won't be able to go on the curbs because of the bollards.
right.
So
There's not gonna be any place to go, is going to be the issue.
it's going to be on the street.
Yeah,
Like the 18-wheel trucks do on Adams Street now, and they're making deliveries to the
Right.
restaurants. They just
Right.
park in the lane and call it a day. Like I'm offloading, too bad. Go around.
Yeah. Tim, I wonder if, I wondered, and we were putting this together, I wondered if the town had ever considered making some of those roads one way.
It's been discussed. I think we have a curbside usage plan or a study that was done a few years ago that makes that recommendation in regards to a loading zone on Franklin Street. We'd obviously have to put a little bit more study into that, but I think, you know, given the limited number activity, you need to provide a place for cars or for trucks to load. I think it's something we'll probably put a little more thought and a little more research into.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage the town to look at that, you know, and maybe maybe Bassett one way in, Franklin one way out. You know, I've heard that before, and we heard that when we were doing our traffic mitigation work a few years back. So it wasn't timely at the time. So it's just something to think about. I mean, I don't think it's something for today, but I do think in the context of a building that's permanent like this, that these kinds of street improvements ought to be thought about. So, enough said. Thank you. That's it for the decision itself. The issue, the remaining issue is waivers. So we've looked at the waivers, and thank you, Tim, for well, the first principle on the waivers is we don't waive something that doesn't need a waiver.
That's
the
correct.
second-
Did you,
Yeah,
so,
so
That's
right.
absolutely correct.
Did you go to law school for that one? That's a good one.
it was at night.
Oh, so did I.
It was
I
at night.
understand.
The second principle is we can't grant waivers for things that weren't requested. So I did pull the other comprehensive permits. There've been other things waived. So what you have is you've got the original chart, and then you've got detail on chapter 6, section 33, which has been requested, which is the curb cut permit, the Board of Selectmen. You've got chapter 21, which is the town storm water management bylaw, and you've got chapter 22, which is the demolition delay. So I added another one, which is Division 2 of the rights of way, Milton DPW right-of-way regulations, because I see that as accompanying chapter 6, section 33, permit for curb cut. With respect to the permit for the curb cut, what the board has done in the past is not required the select board permitting, but have it approved by the DPW
Right.
for public safety purpose.
That's right.
That's what I would recommend here.
Yep.
On the bylaw, the stormwater management bylaw, I would recommend approval because to the extent that there's other work to be done, the Commonwealth's Wetlands Protection Act, Wetland Protection Act will apply. And
You mean the stormwater, you mean the
Yeah.
stormwater management, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then with respect to the demolition delay, I'd recommend that the board grant that since there was no testimony on this. And then lastly, with respect to the scenic bylaw, scenic road, there's no scenic roads here, so I don't think we need to deal with that.
It seems like they just threw everything in here.
I don't know.
I know.
So somebody made a point. So anyway, so I do think even though I said one of the rules should be don't waive something that hasn't been requested, I think we should be clear on the use of the street. So I did add Division 2 here with it. Still subject to some public safety concern particularly given the location. So that's what the board has. Happy to discuss it further. It needs to be cleaned up a little bit, obviously. And people have comments on the town planners, planning director's comments, and we should discuss them.
Yeah, I was only able to give a really kind of quick run through and did kind of what I thought would be the most useful thing, which is,
It's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jeff. In previous decisions, the board's kind of produced its own kind of matrix of waivers. And I think, knowing the citation of the zoning would be helpful for those types of things. This waiver list was not the best. So, there is a little bit of work to be done. But I did, again, try to identify things that, if there's no relief needed, then there's no waiver needed. So whatever. I did have a conversation with the building commissioner because this site is bisected by the district line. A portion of it is in residency, a portion of it is in the business district. And our zoning is kind of silent on this issue, except if a lot kind of existed, pre-zoning, in which case there are, rules about which zoning district, applies. So his advice was, you've got to waive both for the whole site. So there are a couple instances of that where there are, requirements in both C and the business district. And then there are others where there's just a requirement, in one or the other. And then, obviously there are certain instances where there's no relief needed, and I kind of tried to note that.
Okay, where does that leave us?
I think on the zoning ones, it's kind of, and I'd have to look at what the previous practice has been in previous decisions, because the waivers have been presented in different ways. What is the nature of the waiver? Is it just, there's no side setback, or are you, waiving it to the point of what is provided? I think the side setback one is, I think, especially relevant because, the way it's presented on the waiver list that the applicant provided was, the side setback is negative, 6 feet 3 inches, because of the encroachment onto the neighboring property. You don't want to waive the side setback requirements and provide for a negative 6 foot setback, because that means the entire setback is, encroaching on someone else's property. So I think you do have to figure out a way to kind of very specifically tease out the portions of that setback line that, a waiver kind of applies to, and to the extent that it does. There is an easement agreement on record for that. That was something that was provided in one of the submissions. So I think everyone's in the clear on that portion, but I think, some type of language that says, on the southerly setback, it's negative 6 feet here, and then 0 for the rest. I mean, you've got to get into that level of specificity, unfortunately.
So in the other decisions, we actually started to design the format for this with the ice house.
Yeah.
Because theirs originally came in not as not as incomplete as this one, but what they did, because I worked with them on it, and then Jesse Schomer simply followed it with 582 Blue Hill Ave, was you cite the rule, you name the rule, and then you state what is the requirement, what is the actual requirement, and then you say, and so this is the waiver we're asking for. So if I have a 35-foot height limit and I want to build to 60 feet, one column says the requirement is 35 feet. The next column says I'm requesting a waiver to 60 feet. So you're setting the maximum that they're being given. And then there was a space next to that for the board to say, we granted it in part, C condition, whatever, or denied. That's how we did them. So they were very clear that this is the standard. This is what the town requires. This is what I'm asking for. And the board either gives it to me or not.
Yes. So take a look at what you have there, Judy, with respect to
I
the
am.
second set of waivers.
I am.
That's the chart. That's right out of a prior decision, but it only applies to the bylaw, the non-zoning bylaw. These are the general bylaws, because the zoning bylaws are in the other chart. So to do that, we'd
So
have to.
I may not be looking at the right thing then. Was this something you sent, Jeff, or was it?
Second document today.
I'm sorry. I'll get it.
Tim's work.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a second piece of it, which added the general bylaws, the waivers that had been requested, the curb cut, the stormwater, and the demolition delay.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting there. Okay, I'm looking at it now. Yeah, I see it.
You know, that's the chart that you developed for the ice house.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, this is exactly how we did it. This looks good, Jeff. And Jim, both.
But the zoning, excuse me, the zoning chart's not complete because of the fact that we've got two zoning areas, if I understand what Tim had said. Tim, is it as simple a matter of addressing your comments here? Or is it more complicated?
I don't think it necessarily has to be more complicated than that. I just I guess what I was thinking is, looking at the format that Judy was kind of referring to, there is a kind of a little bit of work that needs to be done. And, the applicant has kind of, provided some, the bones of information in terms of, what's required and what's provided. I would have liked to have seen them provide a little bit more kind of meat on those bones.
Yeah.
But I think just sort of getting it into a form that can go into the decision and be, coherent to, someone picking it up. I mean, I think that's the work. The comments that I have are really just like, just noting where relief is necessary or not necessary. I think how you phrase, the height is, 65 feet, we're providing 75 feet, how do you sort of narratively phrase that in kind of the format that we have, I think is the work that needs to be done.
So one thing I can assure you, if we miss something, they have to come back. They'll have to come back and request a modification. It's not the board's fault if the waiver list is incomplete or unclear.
That's good to know.
Oh, no
Yeah,
one.
no, you're right. I agree. I agree. Yeah.
It's not the town's responsibility to fix this.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to be harsh with the applicant, but this wasn't necessary.
Look, I agree with you, Judy. Let me ask one question that came up when Jeffrey was talking, just to see if I understand it correctly. If this property is bisected by the zoning in the residential and the commercial district, is there a general rule of interpretation that somehow the less restrictive application of the zoning law applies? It can't be that if, let's assume it was right down the middle of the property. It can't be that half of the property would be developed pursuant to zoning A and the second half of the building zoning B.
Well, I don't know if you have a split lot provision in your bylaw.
I don't know the slightest
But
idea.
Believe it or not, many towns don't. Most of the ones I've worked with do, and it's usually very clear. Excuse me. You know, an example being you have a split lot, the less restrictive district uses can extend into the more restrictive district by a certain number of feet, subject to a special permit from the ZBA. You know, there's some kind of standard or a procedure for fixing that problem. I don't know if Milton's does. I've not seen it.
Tim, do you have any idea whether that type of definition or application is present in the Milton bylaw?
So like I said, I talked with the building commissioner earlier, and we have something along those lines, but it's for it applies to lots that existed prior to zoning being adopted that are now split by a zoning district, which in this case it's not. This is going to be a brand new lot, you know, in 2022 or whenever, you know, whenever this happens. So I'm gonna, if you guys can maybe stall on something else, I can kind of double check in the zoning right now. I mean, we do have, you know, it's a section about lots in multiple districts. But I like I said, Joe's take on this was, you know, because it's not pre-zoning, you know, the best thing to do would be to, you know, explicitly waive, you know, both requirements.
Mhm.
Yeah. and
Sounds,
he's
that
given
sounds
us a
right to me
chart.
too.
There is a chart here with both requirements in it.
Mhm. Yep.
So can we provide the waiver for the portion of the building that's in the residential area? We provide the waiver that is necessary for that portion in that zoning district. And for the one that's in the portion that's in the building, sorry, the business district, can we provide the waiver that works for that area? You see what I'm saying? It's like I'm trying to, like, for example, the height, right? To the extent the building is in the, where the portion of the building, with respect to the portion of the building in the residential district, it can be, we waive the requirement for 2.5 stories to make it 57 and whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
And then for the portion that's in the current business district, we give a waiver to the required height for that as well.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's kind of, if we don't have a bylaw that addresses the split lot issue, isn't that really our only option?
Yeah. But that's how this is set up, I think.
Yeah,
And frankly, Nick, even if you did have a provision, they may need a waiver anyway.
yeah. Okay, so I hate to ask this, but my eyes keep going to the negative 6.3 feet.
Yeah.
Wait, this
Well,
is
what-
in the,
Well, the reason
Under
is
the-
that they got an easement. That's only there's a small section where they've got that. And then what they've done is they've obtained an easement to evidence site control. So they have that.
okay,
In other words, the setback is addressed in the easement.
in the
I
easement,
think that's what he's saying.
okay.
What's the board's pleasure?
Well, I think I'd like to hear from Tim whether there's any provision in the zoning bylaw that covers this or comes close to covering it. The other is, I think that the board's in a pickle here in a sense, because the applicant has not really given us a clear waiver list and definitions and descriptions, and that's their burden. And I guess the alternative is just to do what we can, the best we can, and then it's going to be up to the applicant to come back and request specific waivers and under specific circumstances if they think they need it. It's not our expertise or our responsibility to design the project for the applicant. It's the applicant's obligation to provide us with a waiver list that's consistent and it's coherent. And with all due respect, I don't think this has been the best effort that they could have come up with. I think we deal with it as best we can. And if there are issues, then it's just going to be on the burden. The burden is going to be on the applicant to come forward and seek further relief.
So John, I can read that zoning for you right now if you want.
That'd be great, Tim. And maybe you can tell us what it really means too.
Yeah, so it's section 2C. This is in the establishment of districts section of the bylaw titled lots in two districts. Where a district boundary line divides a lot recorded prior to the time this bylaw is adopted, the regulations and restrictions of the less restricted portion of such lot shall govern such portion of such lot as shall be within the more restricted district and shall lie within 30 feet of said boundary, provided the lot has frontage on a street in the less restricted district.
Right. That's very standard. It's a
So, but
very
that's where-
common, yeah, sorry.
That's where the bit about pre-zoning comes in,
Yeah.
and this is not
Right.
that doesn't apply here.
And I suppose we can extend the principle.
I don't know why you can't, Nick. I think that makes common sense that you're going to be reasonably consistent in the mere fact that this is a new project and shouldn't disqualify what the real intent of the bylaw
Right.
is meant to be. And if there's a big disagreement, let them go to land court and spend $100,000 trying to get a determination.
So, I mean, if that's the case, I think the business district zoning is probably less restrictive in almost every case.
It would appear to be from the charts here.
Is there a waiver of the intersecting street setback?
Yes.
Side yard? There is?
Yeah.
What's being provided there?
I don't have it in front of me, unfortunately. But I remember that being one.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, the chart doesn't have it. The chart doesn't.
There's
In
a
other words,
reference.
it's got the requirement, but I don't know what it is. you know? The side yard intersecting street setback is 20 feet. It doesn't say what the requirement is. I mean, what's being provided. I guess is the way I should say it. Sorry. So there's a little hole there.
Well, I think this is an issue if the board is going to take the stance that, you know, you're going to follow the spirit of the lots in two districts, you know, portion of the zoning. There is no intersecting street side frontage requirement in the business district. So in that case, there is no relief needed. It's only if you're sort of waiving both sets of requirements simultaneously. That's in the C zone, there's a requirement there, but not in the business district.
Okay. Okay, what do we want to do here? We've got, I can share with the board this draft that incorporates this discussion. Which grants waivers for the uses set forth in the application, the dimensional requirements to which we know that relief is required. With the side intersecting street, is it recommended that we remove that? As
Did they
not
ask-
required? What's
Did
that?
they ask for it?
They did, yeah. It's 20 feet in the District C. Doesn't say what's provided. That's what's holding me up here. The rest of them have a, you know, what's being provided. It's a little bit clearer, so you know what the requirement is, you know what's being provided, therefore you know what you wait. you know what you're waiving. It's not the case with the side street, but
Um,
They're not, if they're not saying the waiver that they need, why would you grant a waiver?
yeah,
I don't get this.
I mean,
I'm not trying to hurt their project, but I
yeah.
don't know what the waiver is that they're requesting either, because they're not saying what it is.
yeah, okay.
I don't know if this helps, but I'm looking at the plans, the revised documents that were submitted on or about February 8th on the town's website. And if I move this too much, I'm gonna to try to find what sheet I'm looking at, so I'll probably lose the whole thing. But there's a zoning summary, and it's basically of including what waivers they're looking for. So this is like on one of the one of the plans,
That's what we're working with.
and that's where you pulled the chart from.
I didn't pull the chart.
They submitted a waiver request list. That's what this is based on.
Okay.
This is basically a Word export from a PDF file.
All right, I'm just seeing if it's giving us if the information is matching up in some way that maybe the missing information is on this sheet. That's what I'm trying to drive at. So I guess, can we grant them there's the relief, the dimensional requirement relief in Exhibit B, Item 2, with the exception of the one for which nothing is provided?
Yep, that's where we're at.
That's where we're going?
Yep.
Okay.
I don't know that you have, I don't know how else you would do this.
Yeah. Well, we can't make it up.
I know.
Okay. That's what you have now.
Okay. So at the bottom of that page, are we waiving site plan approval by the planning board? I think that's yes, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So that one's okay.
There are, the waivers are as follows. The waivers are, you've got use, you've got dimensional requirements where requested, as edited by the planning director. You've
Yep.
got site plan approval by the planning board. You've got District 6, I'm sorry, District C requirements with respect to parking.
Yep.
And you've got District C setback requirements with respect to 20 or more vehicles.
Yep.
Category 5.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then you've got Category 6, design review standards for 5 or more vehicles. That's how it breaks out. And then you've got a series of general bylaw waivers that we talked about.
All right.
There's 6 specific types of waivers.
All right. So we've dealt with 1, 2, and 3. What about 4?
4, yeah, you've got width and construction. The maximum width is 24, being provided is 24, so there's no waiver needed. And the
Right.
minimum curb cut is 32, the provided is 27.4.
So we can grant the waiver on.
Paul?
5.
Tim, stop me if I'm not reading this correctly.
Which one are we talking about?
District C requirements District C requirements under 7F, category 4. It was category 1, I think, in yours, but it's actually category 4.
So it looks like the only relief we're granting in category 4 is number 5 of category 4 with respect to the maximum curb.
Correct,
That's it,
Right.
and
Correct.
nothing else.
correct.
Yeah, because that one, they're providing 2 entrances, 2 exits. The requirement in the C zone is only 1. So they're exceeding the requirements on 1, 2 buses is not applicable. 4 is sidewalks. Are they providing sidewalks for pedestrian traffic? I know that was one of Sean's comments.
Well, the bollards are going into something.
Oh, I'm not sure I understand the question.
So section 7F4 is sidewalks. The driveways to, from, and between parking
Right.
areas shall not be used for pedestrian traffic. Sidewalks or walkways shall be provided for pedestrian traffic. Are they seeking a waiver? Are they asking for a waiver from that one?
No. No,
Okay,
there's no
good.
detail there. I don't think
Good.
I think you're right that 1 through 4 appear to not need any relief, but it almost doesn't matter because it doesn't say it anyway,
That's,
Tim.
it's the same problem.
Yeah,
They don't say what the relief is that they need.
yeah.
All right, so then in category 4, we grant only the relief for the maximum curb cut. And in the next section 5, they're looking for 7.7 feet. This is
Right.
on 20 or more vehicles. I guess we grant that.
Yeah.
And in category 6, District C design standards for 5 or more vehicles. Do they need any relief there?
Which one?
I'm looking in with category 6, District C design
Yeah.
standards for 5+ vehicles.
Yeah, they're asking for an increase in the percentage of compact spaces, as I believe, right, correct?
So that's relief,
Yeah,
because that's a negative. Okay. So we grant 3 and 4 in that category, but 6 through 12, nothing.
they're not asking for anything.
Yeah, they're not asking for anything, so that's coming out.
Correct. And that's all you've got. John?
Yes, sir.
Are you okay with this?
Well, I think I am. I agree with Judy that this boggles my mind, and I think we're dealing with it as best we can, and to the extent that they don't request waivers that perhaps they should have been requesting, they're going to be coming in at a later date and requesting the waivers, but we can't deal with what they haven't asked for.
No. I mean,
then-
they can come in and request a modification of the permit. And,
Right, but
you know,
that's never end. That's the problem. We're going to be having,
I know, John, I know. I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying that is their remedy.
and then my guess is you know construction better than I do, but unless they're timely seeking the waivers, considering that may have to be advertised and go through that, they could terribly affect the flow of construction of the project. If they find they need waivers that they haven't asked for, and then they've got to come in to us, and we've got to schedule a hearing and publish and go through all of the rigmarole.
Well, I think they'll find any errors long before they get to that point.
Well,
Because between this and, you know, construction documents, there's a long way to go.
yep. So Jeffrey, to answer your question, I'm as content as I can be. I just, I always feel uncomfortable when I don't have a full understanding of what they're asking for, what they should be asking for, and what are the implications of this, but you can only deal with what, with the evidence that we have before us. That's all we can do. We're not mind readers or anything else.
I mean, I think, you know, if the applicant's unhappy, it's not the board they can blame. It's their own design team. I mean, somebody had to sit down and create this chart and it's incomplete.
Okay, that's it. Those are the comments. That covers the parking and the waivers, the transportation, and the other issues that came up since the last hearing. And so that's all I had, John.
Okay, well, that's, Nick, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, thank you. Not at this time. Not,
I
at
certainly
all.
don't. Judy, is there something else we should be dealing with that we're not?
I don't believe so, Mr. Chair. I think this is in about as good a shape as it's going to be.
Okay. Well, let's assume we vote on the project as we've just discussed. I think we have a filing deadline here of this Monday.
I think you're right.
And then, so I guess my question is, are we able to put together all of this stuff in a decision format so that it can be filed on Monday?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What about availability of the board members to sign a decision that can be timely recorded with the town clerk?
I can run over whenever, tomorrow or Monday,
Should be DocuSign, no?
or can it be, whatever you need. If you need a physical signature, I'll come visit Crystal or wherever in town hall and get it signed. And if I need to run up the street to Jeffrey's house, I can do that too. Or into Boston.
Well, I'm available over the weekend. Monday, I am in Boston. So I could be available first thing Monday to sign something.
Mr. Chair, I think you probably already know this, but just for the record, the board should actually take a vote.
Oh, yes, I know.
Okay, all right. Just making sure I don't forget to mention it.
No, thank you. And I'm not quite sure as to the specificity of the vote because we're going to be incorporating by reference a lot of discussion that we've had, and I'm just trying to be sure that what's our goal here, to sign this before Monday?
I think that would be easier.
Would take a lot of pressure off of everyone. I don't want Chris to be running around at 2:30.
Yeah, no, we don't want that.
That's crazy. Jeffrey, you've been taking the laboring oar here and in production purposes, and without your assistance here would be dead ducks in the water. Do you have a sense of when you think this can be put together and in form, ready for signature?
It's gonna have to be tomorrow. I'm going out of town tomorrow, so.
We've used DocuSign on previous decisions. The 582 decision I'm just looking at is all DocuSign. I don't know if, do we have that through the town, or is everyone using their own kind of personal? I have no idea how this works.
That was through the town.
So I think, Crystal, if we can first thing in the morning, figure out how that works, and then I think we can kind of huddle up and figure out if we can do it that way, or if we need to kind of scramble around and get some wet signatures, we can do that. But I think if we have the capability to do that online remotely, we should definitely avail ourselves of that.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I have sent the board over other letters and things like that that have needed to be signed, and we've used the DocuSign. I haven't closed one of the 40B cases, so I'm not sure what the protocol is for that, but I'm sure
You're way in the deep end now, Crystal. So
I'm sure we can figure it out in the morning.
Jeff, when you said you're leaving town, are you coming back before Monday, or you're going to be gone for a period?
I'm coming back Sunday, but I got to be at a funeral Monday. It's going to be an all day kind of thing. So I don't want to commit to Monday. I'm just not going to be around. So that's why DocuSign should work. That worked before. So,
Okay.
But I got to get this out. So it will be out tomorrow, not later than tomorrow. That's all.
All right. And Crystal, you can make sure that we have all of the information and stuff to DocuSign once we receive it from Jeffrey.
Okay.
Okay. So let's let me propose a vote on the application that I propose that the application of the residences at East Milton, to use it generally, be approved pursuant to the refinements and discussions of the board over the last 3 hearings, where we've discussed and refined the decision under Chapter 40B of the bylaw, and all is evidenced by the decision, which is going to be available for signature sometime on Saturday. Is that correct, Jeffrey? No, is that
tomorrow? It's going to have to be tomorrow. I'm not around Saturday.
Okay. Well, that's available tomorrow sometime in the afternoon. Is that a sufficiently comprehensive vote, Judy?
I think so.
Well, I think so too, but I don't know what else to say. Otherwise, I'll be talking for 10 minutes. And
No, it's fine, John.
okay.
Yeah. Approve
So
the decision as discussed tonight, subject to changes agreed to by the board, and leave it at that.
Okay. So all those in favor of voting this application in the affirmative, please say aye.
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 Aye. And we have 3 votes affirmative. I guess all those voting negative, but by definition, there are no votes negative. So if we have this sometime tomorrow, and we're going to sign it on late tomorrow or sometime on Saturday. Crystal, are you somehow available if we need you to get a signature on Saturday? Or
Yeah, so I'm leaving work tomorrow probably by 1, but I will, I mean, I'll be checking my emails. I can shoot you an email with my cell phone number too, if I
If we have through the town, if we have
Yeah.
DocuSign capability, we can do this online. There's not going to be,
Yeah.
we'll do this
Okay.
tomorrow. I just don't know the exact mechanics of it, so I don't want to speak to it, but we can figure that out first thing tomorrow morning at town hall. So
Okay.
just keep an eye on your email, for that, and we can get this done before close of business tomorrow.
okay, that's great. The only proviso that I'll throw out and send us a cell phone number, Crystal, so we'll have that.
Okay,
Is I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So if I can get it before 4, it'll be wonderful. If not, I'll just do it sometime in the evening and coordinate with Crystal that the signature has been received and is recorded, and we're ready to go and record on Monday. Is that okay with everyone?
Yep.
That's fine.
yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much to Judy Barrett for participating tonight. I know this has been a terrible burden on you. Wish you the
It's-
best.
It's
to,
fine, John. It's fine.
And Jeffrey, thank you very, very much. Would be lost without the services that you've provided. And Nick, thank you too. And Tim, Tim's always been wonderful in this entire process. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's see if we can put this one to bed. And it certainly has taken a lot of time and a lot of detailed and a lot of discussion that sometimes can get very tedious for the listening public, but it's all necessary to avoid issues if there's an appeal of this particular application, and we want to provide a decision that's worthy of the time and effort that everyone on both sides of this case have put forward. And so I want to thank both Bob Galvin and Mr. Freeman and their various clients for acting in a very professional way and for participating in the process. And look forward to entering this decision and then moving on. So thank you very, very much. Anything else that anyone wants to cover or say? Jeffrey, do you have any comments you want to record, or Mr. Gray?
Nope, thank you.
Okay, and Judy, you're all set. So without further ado, I think I heard a motion to adjourn this hearing by Mr. Gray, seconded by Mr. Mullen. And so all those in favor of the motion to adjourn this hearing and to get this decision filed by Monday, the 25th, I'll say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, guys. I appreciate it. It's good working with you. Would be lost without you. This is much more, it involves a lot of experience and a lot of technical knowledge that it's difficult to find in 3 lawyers named Joe. So thank you very much, Judy and Tim. We appreciate your help. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good
Good night now.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.